Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And by PagerDuty, serving as the hub of your operations, aggregating all of your infrastructure, monitoring tools, and alerting the right people and teams at the right time. Sign up today at pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt with your first alert.
We have a real treat for you today on This Week in Startups. It's our Incubator and Accelerator panel from the Launch Festival. Hallie from RockHealth is on the panel, Clara from Tumml, and Brady from Highway1. These are three very specific incubators focused on health, cities, and hardware. And they are critically important for entrepreneurs because getting accepted to one of these accelerators or incubators, whichever term you prefer, can really set a company apart. They can make the company take a year or two out of their lifespan and really start you on second or third base. This is the episode where you're going to learn how to get accepted to one, how they think, and why they're important. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
We all know about Y Combinator. We all know about Techstars. But you all are running vertical incubators, accelerators. Tell the audience what your vertical is and how many classes you've done and how it's going.
Hi, my name is Clara. I'm the co-founder of Tumml, which is an urban ventures accelerator. So our whole mission is to empower entrepreneurs to solve urban-specific problems. We've been around for about 2 years. We've had 4 cohorts, so that's 23 companies. They're looking to solve problems like homelessness, workforce development, transportation, anything that's afflicting a city here in the US.
And it's city-focused, and it's a nonprofit, if I know correctly. And one of the companies I know well, Hand Up, which will be speaking, I think, later today or tomorrow, which I'm an investor in.
Great.
And Hand Up was in the first class?
They were one of the first companies that we funded. So we look for innovators that are looking to solve, community problems in cities, social problems, but do it in a scalable way that attracts investment from traditional institutional funders like you.
Awesome. Brady, now you have an incubator accelerator. You have a preference for word?
Accelerator.
Okay, you like accelerator?
Yeah.
So tell everybody about your accelerator.
I run Highway1. We are a hardware accelerator. We are part of PCH, which does manufacturing and supply chains for lots of companies and startups. We're on our 4th class right now. We've had 35 companies go through. The best known is probably NavD, heads-up display for cars, Ringly, which is Bluetooth notifications through high-fashion rings, and Q, which does at-home medical diagnostics. Our 10th class just came into our new space in Potrero 2 weeks ago.
Awesome. And I think I'm an investor in one Birdie.
You are an investor in Birdie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that going?
They're doing great. They're spending a lot of time in China right now trying to get their fire alarm air monitor up and running.
Is that going to make a lot of money or no?
I think it's going to do well. Okay. Mark's got the chutzpah.
He does. He does. He's unstoppable.
And the hair.
He's got good hair. Yeah. I agree. Which is also kind of critical when making investment decisions. Typically not focused on. Hallie, now RockHealth started as an incubator and as a nonprofit, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. You did a couple classes, and then you converted into a fund. Do I have that history correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So we started RockHealth in 2010. We started it in Boston. My co-founder and I were at Harvard Business School. Moved out to San Francisco in 2011 to launch. And then in 2013, we transitioned to raising a seed fund and kind of shedding the accelerator. Although, there's some branding issues, and I think a lot of people still think we're an accelerator. So I'm here to say we are a seed fund. You can tweet that. RockHealth is a seed fund, not an accelerator.
Right. But I put you on the new accelerators anyway because it's a verticalized angel fund. How large is the fund?
So it's under 10 million.
Right.
And I wouldn't say angel. Our investors in the fund are both VCs and hospitals. So Mayo Clinic, Kaiser Permanente, Bessemer, Kleiner Perkins. Yeah.
And so they invest in you because they see what?
I think it's twofold. I think one, they like the companies that we fund and want to get in earlier. And two, they don't really have the capacity to do early stage deals. Both Bessemer and Kleiner are huge VC funds that are going to focus on maybe Series A, B, and later. So for them, it's a way to work with and see these companies at an earlier stage.
How many classes or companies, cohorts, I'm not sure how you counted them, because I think you had a rolling kind of mission.
Yeah, we fund companies all the time. Today we just announced our maybe 60th company called Chronotherapeutics. We were part of a $32 million round, so we're kind of getting a little bit later stage with companies.
Right. And typically the check size you write is what, 25, 50, 100?
$250K.
Oh, 250. So
up to 250, yeah.
That's a pretty big swing for a small fund. That means you're going to do how many swings at bat? 30?
Yeah, so I mean, we started 20K, then we moved to 100, and then last year we moved to 250, and what we decided was we wanted to do fewer, larger deals.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what was the thinking there?
All about the economics.
Got it. Yeah. And so why stop doing the accelerator? It seemed like you had carved such an amazing niche for yourself where if you were healthcare, you went to RockHealth. That was like this incredible brand, and it's kind of surprising to me at least.
Well, there were a lot of reasons. Mainly, we were constantly getting feedback from the entrepreneurs about what works for them and what they want from RockHealth. And what we really heard over the years was that they wanted our support kind of throughout their life cycle. And especially as they start to mature, our network in the healthcare industry becomes even more important to them. And they need those kind of connections throughout their life cycle. So having kind of a start and end date to a program didn't make sense for us anymore.
Right. Is somebody going to come in and fill that gap? Because it seems like Y Combinator is really interested in healthcare.
Yep. And I think we have 5 or 6 companies that we've invested from Y Combinator, which is great. And we love working with accelerators, and we still think there's a place for it, but we're kind of moving to a place that's a little bit less, it's more de-risked and a little bit later. And I think accelerators are great for product expertise. Right. And our team, what we've realized, like where we really excel is around business development, go-to-market strategy, commercialization. Right. So if they can go to an accelerator and work on the product and validate that product, and then we can invest in them.
Right. You've moved up the stack. Yeah.
Exactly.
Ah, yes, the Walker Corporate Law Group is an amazing group of attorneys with 10 to 20 years of experience, and they do fixed fees. What does that mean? That means you don't have to be scared when you open up that PDF from your attorney every month. Oh my God, is it going to be $3,000 or $300 or $30,000 or $15,000? That's agita, that anxiety I have lived with my whole life. But now, fixed fees. What does it mean? I need to incorporate. I need to get a trademark. I need to do an employment agreement. I need to do M&A. They're going to give you a flat rate, and they're going to say, hey, this is about what it's going to cost, and here you go. We'll just do it for this amount of money. And Scott and his team, they left all those big firms because they wanted to do something small and intimate. And they spend so much time with founders. I've had so many founders from hackathon teams who have IP issues, like, oh, who owns this? 2 of the hackathon members don't want to do this anymore. 2 of them want to make it into a company. What do we do now? Oh, scary. Scott makes it not scary. You can email him, scott@walkercorporatelaw.com. Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com. Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R, obviously. walkercorporatelaw.com, 415-979-9998. 415-979-9998. Sometimes Scott Walker picks up the phone himself, and he often talks to entrepreneurs, for hours who come from This Week in Startups or from the Launch Festival. He's a true mensch, and you can't go wrong with Scott Walker. Everybody I've sent to him has just come back to me and said, NPS score 10. Very likely to refer a friend to Scott Walker. That's why his business is booming, and he's chosen this walk in life. He only wants to work with entrepreneurs and help them have their vision become reality. And for that, I salute you, Scott Walker, and the Walker Corporate Law Group. Email scott@walkercorporatelaw.com. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.
So Clara, you've actually moved down the stack, and you want the rougher, more diamonds in the rough. How do you, when you're selecting a diamond in the rough, know there's a diamond in the rough?
It's a great question. I don't know if we have necessarily like a perfectly thought out explanation. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we look for companies that are solving problems that have maybe been identified by mayor's offices across the country as a real priority, but they haven't necessarily been able to solve it on their own. So Kid Admit, which is a common application for preschools, you hear pretty much every week from some mayor's office in the US that they want to prioritize universal preschool, but most preschools are administered by, private administrators, religious institutions, nonprofits, and so there's no real way to kind of aggregate that information. And we thought, there are 25 million applications submitted to college every year and 35 billion applications submitted to preschool, so there's really some upside to be had and also a social problem to be solved. So that's kind of the calculation that we do.
What are I get where the ideas come from, like this is like, that's a really good sign if a mayor in their office is on it. When you look at the individuals, because this seems to me to be one of the hardest things to do as an investor. How do you know that the person with the energy and enthusiasm will have the skill and resolve to become an entrepreneur? Because you can always see the enthusiasm, right? People can fake it too, I think.
I think it's a combination of sort of issue area expertise. I think many of the companies that we work with are solving problems in areas that have historically been taken care of by government or nonprofits or maybe not at all. And so finding people who really do have deep issue area expertise is really critical, but also I think, frankly, kind of a ruthlessness. So we work with companies, many of whom actively identify as social impact, and we love that. But I think historically, many people, especially the kind of people that come to an event like this, tend to be a little bit skeptical of that space. And so we tend to look for people like Rose, the founder of Hand Up, who frankly is like a merciless, tough lady, and those are the kind of people we look for.
Yeah, they need to have that, we're going to make this happen no matter what kind of vibe. Yes.
But I also think it's interesting that I think over 60% of the companies that we invest in have a woman co-founder, which is very unusual. And we don't actively select for gender. That's not something we think we take into consideration, but it's interesting that it's very different.
We don't select for gender here. It just happens to be that 2 of the 3 most important accelerator and vertical investors are women.
In matching outfits, no less.
We just picked the best, which is kind of interesting. We should go there. Let's go to gender for a second.
You've been pretty vocal about this lately.
I have to be very careful about it, but I kind of feel it was interesting. There's been a lot of controversy about it. That the problem of gender diversity, having been in the industry for 25 years, and I don't mean to mansplain, but I've seen it getting better and better and better. And I see everybody working so collectively to say, let's really encourage women through outreach and applications and mentoring. And just the sheer number of amazing female founders I'm seeing is 10x what I saw 5 years ago. I mean, you can see a difference in the market, correct? I mean, it's undeniable, I think.
Yeah, there are more support networks, there are more conferences, there are really successful groups like Women 2.0. I mean, the problem is still there. We're not going to, say that, okay, our work is done, let's move on. I think having that dialogue around the problem is still really important. But one of the big conversations, Jason, you've been in is around the Vivek Wadhwa issue.
Sure.
And, he decided that he was going to step out of the conversation, which I thought was really disappointing because I appreciate his voice. I'd be curious, are you stepping out of it or are you?
Well, I generally step in it. That's kind of my brand, is to step in it. I don't know. I kind of just, with this issue specifically, I really feel like it's very easy for people to fight and bicker on Twitter, and then it's very hard to actually do the work, right? And so what I've focused my time around is finding the people like yourselves who are doing the work and featuring them. Or on the podcast, finding the women, finding the diversity, and featuring them. And then talking to those people, right? So everybody can fight with each other about why we have this issue. And then there's another group of people, it might be 20% of that group of people fighting, who are actually actively working. So I'm kind of trying to find those people and feature them at our events. Right? It seems like a better use of time.
Yeah. No, and I think that's an interesting, something that we started doing. I noticed that in the healthcare world, there were even fewer women on stage at conferences than in tech. believe it or not, it was even worse.
Yeah.
And so we created just a list of all the conferences and the percentage of female speakers just to kind of shame them or just remind them to be more thoughtful about it. And then we created a database of female speakers and we sent it to conference organizers and said, hey, last year you only had 10% women on stage. Like, you need to do better. And there was, TEDMed is an example. They went from, I think it was 14 or 18% female speakers to over 50% last year. So I think just making sure that conference organizers are cautiously working towards diversity on stage, not just gender, but race, experience, I think is really important. So thank you. We all appreciate it. Round of applause for that.
Well, round of applause for you guys for running the incubator, I think, as well. There's also an issue. It is a very sort of pragmatic issue about events, which is you guys must get a lot of invites to events because people are trying to feature more women, but the percentages in reality of people leading projects, it's lower. So therefore, you each are getting many more invites. So when I invite Marissa or Cheryl, who have standing invitations to the event, they're like, Jason, I've got 100 invites a day. It's impossible to do.
I think the key is highlighting, like, earlier stage people are taking, different approaches. For us, like when I was in business school, I knew about Hallie and I knew about RockHealth, and I knew that they had sort of taken an industry vertical that was, at the time at least, relatively underrepresented, and she'd sort of created this incredible niche for herself and really defined the space and sort of defined herself as a leader of the space. And for me, it was just because I'd heard about it through a student club, and the fact that this club had highlighted the work of RockHealth, and obviously the work of Marissa Meyer, and a lot of these sort of bigger names are important, but I think highlighting the folks who are being really scrappy and creative is just as important, because for me, the inspiration was much more about thinking about what RockHealth had done than necessarily thinking about what some of these sort of larger institutional women investors had done.
Great. So Brady, why don't you tell us about the women's issues and explain to us. Right now, Brady's like, oh, do I have to?
Actually, with Ignite, the global talk series that I started with Brie Pettis back in 2006, we aimed for at least 40% women on stage. And I think that's one of the reasons that it grew. I mean, if you're not representing the audience on stage, then it just becomes an echo chamber.
Yeah, agreed. So tell us a little bit about your incubator, getting back to the incubator topic. How do you select people for hardware? And how much more difficult is hardware than not hardware?
Well, we look first at the prototype. Like, do they actually have a prototype? And that's why I say we're an accelerator, not an incubator, because we won't take people at the napkin stage. Like, they have to have a functioning, you can see the product there. And then we look at the team. Do they have the skills? Do they have this get anything done mentality? And how long have they worked together? That's something we've really noticed, is the length of the friendship, the length of the partnership matters a ton. And one of the reasons hardware is so hard is that you need a lot of money to turn your prototype into a product, and that's before you even have your first customer. And so we spent a lot of time with them trying to figure out ways they can get their early prototypes in the hand of customers in a cheap, resource-efficient way. So Cadian is one of our companies, and they have been doing a small kind of like pre-order campaign where they've taken an existing product, added a Bluetooth module to it that hooks up to their software, and are now shipping that out to 65 parents around the country to help children deal with night terrors. And their actual real product won't ship until...
What is the night terror product? Tell us.
So children, some low percentage of children experience night terrors for somewhere between 1 to 18 months. And this is the type of thing where early in the evening, a couple hours after they go to bed, they dip into a deep stage of sleep, and they experience nightmares where they don't wake up, and they start screaming, and it's like a horrific experience for the parents, or so I'm told. Research has shown that if you kind of nudge the kids as they're going into that deep stage of sleep, they experience fewer night terrors. So the team out of Stanford's Biodesign and
YC
Med School, and currently also in YC, have developed a technology that will vibrate the kids out of that deep stage of sleep. And so they're currently going through both us and YC
They're going
develop
to
it.
2 incubator accelerators at the same time, concurrently?
Yep.
Did they lie and get into both, or did you and Sam Altman talk?
We just both worked with the founders.
But you were aware that they were...
Oh, yeah.
So this is like a polyamorous kind of startup situation.
Yes.
Do you feel jealous when they're at Y Combinator and they come back with great stories?
No, because I think they go to Y Combinator and they tell them about our shop.
San Francisco is very unique about this issue. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we'd been talking to them for a while. They got to know YC, and then they ended up doing both.
And so the only issue there is they gave a heck of an equitable equity deal to both of you. Mm-hmm. You both get 5, 6, 7% for a small amount of capital. So they got how did they handle that dilution? Did they renegotiate their deal with each of you and give you each half the economics?
I don't know what they did with YC, but they had already raised, so we took less.
You cut a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
This seems to me like a really fascinating concept to be on 2 tracks. But I've also seen people now doing it stacked. When you see people doing it stacked, Clara, do you think that's a weak company or a smart company? Or it depends?
It depends. So like we work with really early stage companies, and so for us, many of our companies end up at YC or 500 afterwards, and that's fine by us because, I mean, what we help them do is think through their regulatory strategy, their political strategy, the things they need to sort out before they could even think about growing their business. And so, you know, if they want to go to another place afterwards to get different kinds of resources, that's great. I think some of the companies that we've seen use it as kind of like a coping mechanism, like they're a little bit afraid to start fundraising, and so for them this is like a warm space where they can stay a little bit longer, and in that case I don't think that's necessarily the greatest idea, but oftentimes companies they need a little bit more time to sort something through, they need some more advice, they need to be able to continue iterating on their product, and so it makes sense for them to go through a number of programs.
Yes, PagerDuty is a great product that manages one of the most painful aspects of running a startup, which is when the service goes down, who do you call? Who do you wake up? Which developer has to leave, you know, their daughter or son's, you know, soccer game? Oh my God, it's brutal. PagerDuty is a reality that we all have to deal with. Our services are 24/7. If things go down, you're going to need to have a product that manages all the alerts, who's on duty. And you know what? People quit over PagerDuty. It's a very challenging, controversial, internal debate amongst developers, right? And developers have a lot of choices of where they're going to work. Sysadmins have a lot of choices of where they're going to work. You want to have tools to make it easy, and PagerDuty is that tool. Just looking at the client list here, Atlassian, HipChat, Pinterest, New Relic, Airbnb, Panasonic, Slack, and Path, and us. I mean, it's an amazing product. You do not want to roll your own monitoring system. Customers love the apps. They have an iOS and an Android app, of course, so you can receive alerts there. And one of my investments was in Chartbeat, a great company. And Justin Lintz over there, the senior operations engineer, said this: PagerDuty gives Chartbeat one central place to send critical alerts. We now have a simple, easy process for on-call scheduling. Hey, here's your call to action. Sign up today for a free 14-day trial at pagerduty.com/twist, and you'll get a free t-shirt when the first alert comes in. That's right, a free t-shirt when you get your first alert. Go to pagerduty.com/twist, pagerduty.com/twist. This is a fantastic product from a fantastic company that really solves a massive pain point, which is being on PagerDuty is brutally painful sometimes. And you know what? Things go down. It's very stressful. You need tools to make it less stressful and manage it better. Really, like when things are bad, you need those tools to make things a little bit easier and a little bit more manageable so people don't quit on you and so your service is up and running. Thanks again to @PagerDuty for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. Speaking of which, let's get back to this amazing episode.
Haley, what's your take on this sort of accelerator hopping, parallel, polyamorous accelerator action?
Sure. I mean, I think it depends on the company. There are certainly a lot of companies that just kind of like, you know, people that just really like school and go and continue to get all those degrees, and you're like, what are you doing? Why don't you go get a job? So there's some companies that I feel get some sort of validation from the accelerator, and that's like the ends versus, you know, the means to the ends.
Right.
So those I think are problematic. But I think for us, for instance, I mean, we think YC is a great place for a lot of the consumer-facing healthcare companies. They're just so good at product and getting companies to hustle and get that product out and grow quickly. And we're just kind of on the other side where we're about kind of commercialization. What sort of healthcare industry players do you need to connect with? So it's very complementary, but I would say we'd prefer that they do YC before versus at the same time of our funding. We'd rather have a company kind of come out of YC and then we fund them versus, I think Benchling is an example. They went through YC and then we funded them.
What do they do?
Agile MD, they went through YC and then we funded them.
What does the first one do, Benchling?
Benchling?
Yeah, what do they do?
They're a platform for data scientists at pharmaceutical companies.
Oh.
You know, we have great industry connections in pharma. So, you know, we've been able to connect them with
It's interesting that you like to do it afterwards, because what we found is that follow-on accelerators tend to get kind of mad at Tumml because we get in really, really early. I mean, we're looking for really, really early stage deals. Our terms are much better and the values of the companies are significantly lower. And so what we found is we're happy for companies to go to accelerators afterwards, but oftentimes later stage investors or accelerators don't like the fact that we got in a lot earlier. And for us, like, we're a nonprofit, we're here to be helpful. We're not trying to sort of edge out any follow-on funders, but I think that that is more of a concern for later stage accelerators than for early stage accelerators.
Yeah, I viewed it as an experiment. I viewed it as a way to learn from YC and see, like, how do we function as partners with them. We did the same thing with Boston Techstars, and what we learned is we won't do a bi-coastal relationship that way. But if they'd done something that was more local, seems like it'd be fine.
But I think the common thread here is, like, if it's YC, we're cool with it. But there are a lot of, like, these predatory, random, crappy accelerators that don't even give money, and they just take, you know, equity from these companies at no value. Oh, yeah.
What,
and
name one. What are these called?
Startup Health.
Startup Health. They just
they take equity from companies, and they
don't give money.
They do not give a cent to the company.
Or they'll make the companies pay to participate.
Oh, then those are even worse.
Yeah.
To pay.
Like Karetsu Forum makes you pay $6,000 or something to pitch, or demo makes you pay $20,000.
It's really predatory, and I think it's also, you know, it's like, I feel bad for the entrepreneurs that they feel like they need to do that. They should be getting funding and really have the sort of resources they need to grow versus having a handicap.
They're naive. They don't know. They think, I got accepted to Accelerator. Maybe this is the way it goes.
Well, I think partly that, and partly especially in underrepresented sectors. So like many of the companies that we work with are in industries that are really underrepresented in more traditional accelerators or investing circles. And so when they find, you know, an enthusiastic social impact accelerator, or, you know, an event where they can go pitch a bunch of investors who say they're interested in homelessness, for example, you know, just pay $2,000 to pitch 2,000 investors. And they think, like, maybe this is my only shot. And it's really unfortunate. Yeah.
And they need those connections to do it.
It's really a bad decision. It's bad decision making, though. When I think about the entrepreneurs, I'm like, you're giving up 6%. You could hire someone for 6% and have them go make those connections.
It's bad decision making, exactly. And then these companies that charge you to be on stage to present to investors, what they don't realize is anybody who's a real investor would never associate themselves with people then selling the investors. Like, we would all not.
It's a negative signal.
It's a negative signal. Like, if you said the people who are getting on stage paid to be there, we all would be like, well, we're not interested in seeing them.
Yeah.
Because if they had the goods, they would be able to get to us through our normal networks.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, these people who do it. I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. No predatory.
We did not pay to be here.
No, not yet.
On the contrary.
On the contrary. So one of the things I'm hearing is have a prototype, you know, have your product built and have some growth, maybe a little bit of a basic product or a business plan?
I think you need to have a business plan. Ideally, you'd be working on developing your product. For us, we're much more interested in looking for people that are solving problems that nobody else is solving.
Got it. So if they're halfway through their prototype and it looks decent, you would accept them, but no prototype and just a business plan, no way.
I would normally say that's true, but Rose came to us pre-product, and we just thought she was such a baller and had such a clear vision for what she wanted to do that we were happy to fund her. And I think that we're open to it.
Yeah, so it has to be somebody exceptional.
Yeah.
Track record, whatever, and then maybe you bend the rules of not having it. Where should people go to get the money, to get the knowledge, to get the support to build the prototype? Because it seems like we're all, in the launch incubator included, now I'm like, prototype, we discuss your prototype, your MVP, and then we decide if you get in.
Well, for me, they should go to Adafruit, buy an Arduino, hang out at Tech Shop, and build the damn thing with their friends, and then come to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have enough space now that we can kind of pre-incubate teams. We just haven't found the right team to do that yet.
Yeah. So the pre-incubators, I think that's where there's an opportunity for somebody to, like, make a college Like, I think you should pay to go to a pre-incubator, like, to learn how to build companies. Like, go to school. Like, if school's taught you this.
Get a job, learn on the job.
That's a good option, too.
You know, I think working at another startup, there's so much to learn, and you could get paid and have the upside to learn. To me, I would much rather see an entrepreneur that you know, came out of a few years at a startup, whether that startup succeeded or not, just the learnings from that versus like going to, I don't know, startup school, paying to go to startup school seems unnecessary.
And that's where they would find their teammates, right? I mean, if they got to work alongside people in a startup environment and then 2 or 3 people from that team
And the best founders have worked together. The ones that, and you know, they know their work dynamics. They've already kind of gotten through the drama of learning how to work with each other, and they can just focus on building.
Although, you know, I think we've had a kind of a different experience. I think many of our most successful startups have actually not come from a startup background, but instead have come from a very deep issue area of expertise. Like they maybe worked in government, or they maybe worked on this issue through a nonprofit or a much larger company.
A really interesting point you bring up, because I hear people say absolutely conflicting advice. You have to have deep domain expertise.
Yeah.
Because then you can really solve the problem, you know it well. Then I hear people say, we need fresh eyes on this.
Yes.
We need somebody who's never been in the taxi. I want somebody who's just smart and has never been in it. So wait, you're saying one, you're saying the other. What's the counterpoint?
I love working with founders that are learning the healthcare industry firsthand. And they're going to hire experts as the company grows, but really to do anything that's going to, you have to completely disregard the status quo. And oftentimes in healthcare specifically, people that have been in healthcare for a long time, I see myself doing this now because I've been in it for 5 years, you get so tainted by the existing infrastructure and what can and can't be done today versus founders from outside of healthcare that come in and completely just shed that any sort of expectations, and they say, why is it this way? Let's do it this way, not knowing how challenging it is. So
you either need to have the domain expertise and be flexible, a big thinker, or be a flexible big thinker who can acquire the domain expertise.
I always prefer the latter.
You prefer the domain expertise?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You can.
I've seen it work both ways, by the way.
Both ways, yeah.
I've seen people who have spent 20 years doing ad agencies and say, I figured out a better way to do this problem. And make software for the ad agencies. And then I've seen Travis with Uber.
To identify a problem in healthcare, you either have to have, unfortunately, had an experience in the healthcare industry, or you've had to work in it. So there's like something about identifying the problem. You have to have domain expertise. So sometimes it's someone who worked in a health insurance company that realized that there's a waste, right here, and they can cut that. But
so, what is the best way for people to convince you to for you to give them your money / accept them into your accelerators? What are the secrets to like instant yes, instant like we have to have this person involved?
I want to
look at those top ones.
Oh wow, I want it to be magic. So the first time I saw Q, which does at-home medical diagnostics, I didn't actually believe that I could do home testing to see my testosterone levels, vitamin D, and fertility. Not that I've had that exact need, but that could be done in 2 minutes rather than 2 weeks.
That was Q, the company where you just prick your blood and it tells you your levels.
Yeah.
So it was magical. It blew your mind.
Jetsons level is what I called it.
Awesome. So if you bring something to you and it's like, this is a better, I don't know, pedometer.
Yeah.
Because you're channeling the consumer.
What's that?
Are you channeling the consumer in that way, or channeling the future consumer?
I am in that case, yeah. Something that I never believed was possible is suddenly sitting on the table in front of me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna restate my question. What's the snap yes, right? Like where you absolutely quickly say yes? Because that's really what you answered is like, God, it's a yes if it's a wow. So what's your snap yes?
I think it's a combination of solving a problem that nobody else is solving, and just genuinely being a nice person that I want to work with. I think it's surprising how many people come into our office and are just colossal assholes, and I don't have to give them money, and so I don't.
Right. People forget that. Like if people who are running these accelerators are investors, they have their choice of who to fund, and they don't want to add assholery to their life.
We have a 3% acceptance rate. Like I don't have to take you. Like, come talk to me and explain to me why you want to work together. Like we think of ourselves as partners, so we want to find people we like working with in the same way that you want to find co-founders that have a great working relationship.
Yeah, we work in an open room. We have a strict no assholes rule.
Yeah, there's a sign.
It'll just ruin everything. if one person is a jerk.
Assholes ruin everything.
It's true.
I would just echo what they say, and then additionally, I would add, something that since we raised our seed fund, something that's been happening over the last year or two is companies will come to us with an existing round, and they'll say, we want you to be part of this round, and they're like, oh, we've already raised this much from Andreessen or Excel or whatever it is. That's great, because then we know that they already have a round set up and they're going to have enough capital to really grow fast. So I love when that happens.
You like to be part of those rounds.
I love co-investing with those names.
Yeah, the A-list. So why, a lot of times the A-list, though, they have sharp elbows. Like, Andreessen Horowitz wants everything. Like, they're going to take the whole round in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself into those rounds? And what should founders do if an Andreessen Horowitz says, we want the whole round? What should a founder do? I
mean, that hasn't happened. Generally, especially with tech investors, they realize the value that we add. We're not, we don't have sharp elbows. We don't do follow-on. We don't take board seat. We're, pretty easy to work with for both founders and other investors. So it hasn't been a problem. And the founders usually kind of explain the value that RockHealth adds. So.
Right. So if you have exceptional value and the founder wants you, they can dictate to the venture capital firm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm co-investors with Andreessen in a couple of things, so I don't think that they always want it all. But there seems to be a trend in the venture space of the venture capitalists wanting to just continue to invest in the same company and not let anybody else in.
Yeah.
You see that sometimes?
I'm seeing that, yes.
If it's a winner.
Yeah, exactly.
You find out that they closed their round and nobody else even knew there was a round.
Yeah.
Chris Sacca was talking about it a little bit yesterday. It might be in the later stages more prevalent.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing, seed and Series A, so we're not in the conversation when it comes to Series B. So
yeah,
I don't even.
I think it might be more of a Series B phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the value of issue area. Accelerators or early stage investors. I mean, we have the biggest lobbying firm in California on our board. We work with, all of the folks who have the very specific domain expertise that doesn't come from a traditional investor. So we see ourselves as a partner that brings something different to the table in the same way that a RockHealth brings something very different to the table.
Or Highway1, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like for an entrepreneur, there's so much money available that you really should be looking at not the money, but what does it come with? What level of commitment, what level of knowledge, what level of network? And I think each of your programs comes with a level of knowledge, network, and advice and mentorship that's unprecedented in the angel space. So it's kind of a no-brainer for any entrepreneur to include, any of yours, Tumml, RockHealth, and Highway1. Let's hear it for the next generation of vertical investors and accelerators. Well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.